this collaboration project between Robert and I was really came out of the invitation to participate in the partnershiping project. And I had a couple of ideas in my head, and a certain direction, but the more we spoke about it and just sort of bounced these ideas off each other, it just basically had a life of its own, which is what makes, I think, the Where We Meet collaboration so powerful.
You know, we have a similar life philosophy and political and cultural concerns, even though we come from entirely different places. And that was one of the things that was so fascinating about this project. And of course, the title, partnershiping, I mean, it was too perfect an opportunity for us. As friends, when Damien and I get together, we invariably end up at a museum or a gallery. And we've been fortunate enough to go to some pretty astounding institutions, both here and overseas, together. And I think we have an equal fascination with the anthropology of a museum or public collections. And that's a key aspect of the work, that we wanted to play on that, reflected in what we were doing as a kind of faux anthropological study. So, you know, from that launching point, which is very much the gift of Damien, we treated ourselves as subjects, cast our body parts, and we've measured our faces and our earlobes, and we've tested our blood, and we've looked at our DNA. We're taking a stab at science in the way it's been used and abused over the centuries by the dominant culture. It's really about power, and using the tools available to those in power to, you know, describe a situation that suits them.
There was a kernel of an idea that I'd sort of presented and that we thrashed out a bit. It lent itself to a far more interesting opportunity to collaborate across a number of mediums. And there's maybe a bit of a juxtaposition between some of the methods. The photography, obviously using it's like Civil War era tintype methods, which instantly just take you in a time warp. In that era, that's when a lot of the mug shots were being done of people, and the presentation of front on, side on, ID numbers. So that lent itself beautifully to that presentation. With the DNA, obviously, for us to be able to just spit into a tube and send it off, that's pretty recent. And the presentation of that is bar graphs and just scrolling data, ASCII code.
I think it's very much the museum context. If you think about a museum, you have objects of antiquity placed in perspex boxes on stainless steel shelves with LED lighting and, you know, laser projections on the wall opposite. You know, this is the world we live in, and I think we've consciously exploited that in the way this work is presented. I mean, the use of the 20th century brass scales to measure our hair is a really conscious reach into the past for the viewer, in the same way the tintypes are. It puts them in that museum context. I think it's a really key part of how to unpack and interpret the work, is to see it through that lens. We're all identical. There's nothing to be drawn, no conclusions to be drawn from that are satisfying or allude to any sort of superiority or inferiority in our cultural backgrounds, which are, you know, utterly diverse. I mean, we have almost no DNA overlap, the two of us, which is a fascinating thing within itself. I don't think we need to say too much about what we think. We just present it as a body of work and pose the question, you know, how are we different? Where do we meet?